This full moon in Aries, upcoming on October 17th, is the largest supermoon of the year. This means that the moon is the closest to Earth and therefore appears the largest in the sky. And the astrology of this full moon matches this energy. It is so intense. We have so much going on here, and we're going to unpack all of this in this video. Now, what makes this full moon so wild is the fact that it is occurring in a grand cross with a bunch of other planets. A grand cross is the most intense aspect in astrology, a huge provoker of tension. And many people say a planet or a configuration of planets similar to the Yod that really speaks of destiny and fate, and the events and the circumstances in our lives that are the catalysts for that dynamic change and for this unfoldment of whatever it is that we are destined to experience and to embody in this lifetime. This is a cardinal grand cross, which means that all of the planets involved in this grand cross are in cardinal signs. So this is very much an energy of initiation and an energy of action. We're starting something. We're really creating. The cardinal signs are the signs that indicate the changes of the seasons, the initiation of a brand new phase of energy. And with Mars and Pluto involved in this grand cross, as well as the moon being in the sign of Aries, this is a huge indication that there are going to be major developments on a world level, as well as in our individual lives. The biggest players in this full moon sequence really are not even the moon itself, which is opposing the sun, the moon being at 24 degrees of Aries and the sun being at 24 degrees of Libra. And they're both conjunct some powerful planets or points in the sky. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But we're going to talk first about the intensity of the other opposition involved in this grand cross. And for those who want to get a picture or an idea of this, a grand cross essentially creates a giant square or a diamond within a chart where we have two opposing planets or sets of opposing planets. And then we have four squares going on here. So there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of dynamic tension, I guess you could say. And this is, like we said, really a configuration that speaks to destiny. If this is happening in somebody's natal chart, these are the energies that are really going to move them and shake them to their core and are going to create the tension that helps to develop whatever it is that they are meant to develop in this lifetime, the skills necessary in order to achieve the greatest goals, the greatest ambitions that they came here to achieve. And remember, these ambitions could be on a soul growth level, not just talking about worldly ambitions. Although with this particular grand cross, we can definitely feel that sense of worldly energy and worldly ambition here. So we have all of these dynamic energies essentially kind of fighting for control, fighting for attention, if you will. And it truly is, if we look at this grand cross, in one view, we can see it as a square. In another view, we can see it as a diamond. And it really is that pressure that creates the diamond. And that's what this full moon is all about. It is the pressure that creates the diamond. We have the sun and the moon opposing each other. We also have Pluto at that 29 degree of Capricorn point opposing the moon, or rather Mars in Cancer. And we've talked quite a bit about Pluto in Capricorn and a bit about Mars in Cancer, as well as Mars was in Cancer, was squaring the solar eclipse that we just had. Pluto at that 29 degree point of Capricorn just completed his retrograde, his final retrograde in Capricorn in our lifetimes, and stationed direct for the last time that any of us alive on this planet will ever see Pluto stationing direct in the sign of Capricorn on October 12th. So now we have this final hurrah, if you will, until the 19th when Pluto moves back into Aquarius and no longer retrogrades back into Capricorn, where Pluto is closing out this major cycle of energy that began for each of us and for the world back in 2008. And this is a huge world cycle, being that Pluto is one of the collective planets. But we had our individual cycles as well. These initiations, these deaths and rebirths, this area of our lives that was being transformed by this Plutonic energy, really calling us to step into our authority and step into our sovereignty, being that Pluto represents us and the sign of Capricorn really represents this as well. There's an energy of maturity here, Capricorn being ruled by Saturn. So Pluto has been maturing us greatly in some area of our lives. And we mentioned in the last video, I believe it was the weekly astrology report, that if we have really put the work in that was necessary, that both Saturn and Pluto demand, we can see some really beautiful results yielding around this time. And being that the full moon is a time of harvest traditionally, I think that this is where we're going to see a lot of that energy coming in, or at least the foreshadowing for what that might be as we continue to move forward through, like we said, November 19th. So this is a really beautiful aspect of the Pluto in Capricorn energy. On a world scale, we've talked a lot about Pluto exposing the secrets, the corruption of power within these centralized governments, within these institutions that we have created and given authority to. And it's really asked us to examine where it is that we give our power away and where it is that we're willing to take that power back. So we've seen that in a worldview. We've seen people all over the world taking their power back from these corrupt institutions. And we're also seeing this in our own individual lives, particularly wherever it is that we have Capricorn energy in our natal charts. And if you would like a chart reading to go over these energies, if you don't know where that is, go ahead and reach out to me. My information is in the description box below. Pluto has quite possibly, or this Capricorn energy, depending on what type of house system you use, may have moved through a couple different houses. I know the way that I do charts, I don't use the whole house system. So Capricorn is in a couple different parts of my chart, and it likely is in yours too. So there's probably maybe a couple different areas. One where you started out 2008 through a certain amount of those years, and where you felt the second half of this energy. Like I said, depending on what type of house system you use. But you know where this energy has been present, because this is where you've really had to grow up. This is where you've really had to face the depths of your insecurities, your fears, diving deep into that shadow to extract that light. And that's what Pluto's been doing during this retrograde. This has been the last deep dive into the shadow. And now Pluto is assisting us in extracting the light. And I think that we are going to see a lot more coming to light, particularly around this full moon on a world scale, as well as perhaps in our own individual lives and in our own individual journeys. The fact that we have Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto just intensifies that. Being that Mars and Pluto are both planets that represent our power, Pluto really representing the evolution of our power over many, many lifetimes, as well as the conditioning, the emotional conditioning. That's another aspect of this. But when we're looking at the power, this is the lessons that we learn around power and stepping into our power through many, many lifetimes. And Mars really representing our power in this lifetime to a certain extent. Some astrologers consider Mars to be a lower octave of Pluto. So we have that will, that ego will and determination, if you will, with Mars. And then we have the soul's higher will with Pluto. And of course, we know the higher will of the soul will always prevail. It's just how much kicking and screaming we do during that process. And during this full moon and around this full moon time, there might be a lot of kicking and screaming going on. We're going to get more into this Grand Cross, and you're going to see these energies just continuing to develop and intensify. But Mars in Cancer, like we talked about in the last video, and definitely in the video we did on the solar eclipse, because Mars was squaring that solar eclipse. It is Mars is reactive in and of itself, but when we add in those deep emotional waters of Cancer, Mars can be especially reactive. Our emotions are really ruling us, and a lot of times they are guiding our decisions, our actions. So we want to be aware of this. We want to try to temper that, bring in some of that slow steadiness that Pluto offers in the side of Capricorn to counteract any brash actions or decisions or reactions, and to really just be aware of our internal landscape and what's going on. There's going to be a lot of people are probably going to be feeling very triggered, and our triggers are our teachers. However, we want to make sure that we're not taking out this energy on other people, and that we're really just allowing those triggers to come up to show us what they're meant to show us, so that we can understand ourselves more deeply, understand our true power. And really with Mars and Cancer, Mars wants us to understand the power within our emotions, but also like the true lesson of that is how to use that power constructively, how to use our emotions constructively and allow them to fuel us, allow them to spark that ferocity within us that is willing to stand up for what matters to us. Especially in Cancer, this is like home, family, the things and the people that are nearest and dearest to us. With Mars and Cancer, when we feel those things being threatened, there is that desire to lash out. So it's like, how do we tap into that fierceness, but move within that fierceness in a way that is not harmful to ourselves or others? That is one of the great questions within this dynamic. It's really interesting to note that Mars will come into an exact opposition with Pluto, because right now Mars is at 22 degrees of Cancer during this full moon. Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So they're not quite in that exact opposition, but close enough that we're going to be feeling it. On election day in the United States, November 5th, Mars will move to 29 degrees of Cancer and be exactly opposite Pluto. So I find that really fascinating. And Mars will go retrograde at the end of the year, and his retrograde will complete next year at 17 degrees of Cancer. So we're going to be feeling this energy with Mars here. Mars is going to hit this point between the 22 and 29 degrees of Capricorn, or of Cancer rather, again during his retrograde, and then during his direct motion once more. So twice more. Mars will move back to this point around January. And then in April, Mars will hit this 22 to 29 degree of Cancer window once more. And that shadow period for Mars will be completed in April. So we're going to have check-ins with this energy here, and perhaps check-ins with the developments, or how it is that we feel with that Cancer energy about the developments going on as a result of election day and whatever transpires there. And anybody who's been following some of the videos that I've done lately knows that I feel as though we're not going to get the results of election day on election day. I think I was feeling 3 months for some reason. I think it is I think it is going to be contested. I think there's going to be a lot of craziness. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we just end up on the highest timeline for that, and it's very clear cut and dry, and we just move into and continue riding out this highest timeline. We shall see what transpires. But with that opposition of Mars and Pluto, we know it's going to be intense, and I think we're going to start seeing some of the indicators, like we said, the foreshadowing of what's going to happen when Mars and Pluto come into that exact opposition going on with this full moon. So pay attention to what's going on a world scale. What secrets are coming out, what is being triggered within the collective, all of these different things. So moving on to the other 2 points within this Grand Cross, we have the moon at 24 degrees of Aries in, of course, the sign that Mars rules. So that ruler of this full moon, Mars, involved in this Grand Cross. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, how significant that energy is, and how much more powerful that makes Mars being the ruler of this full moon. So moon at 24 degrees of Aries. Eris, the asteroid, is also, or the dwarf planet, is also at 24 degrees of Aries. And then on the other side of the moon, we have Chiron at 21 degrees of Aries. So we're going to see, I think, between this and Chiron, this intensity of energy that's really triggering those wounds to the surface when it comes to some of the stuff that Eris represents, which is feeling left out, feeling unwanted, feeling as though she is taken advantage of, feeling unappreciated. There's this energy with Eris where she wants revenge. So there's this vengeful energy. And mixing this with the moon and Chiron, which represents our deepest wounds, I think this is just intensifying that possibility of people lashing out. Remember, this is a grand cross, so that means the moon, Eris, and Chiron are being squared by both Mars and Pluto. And then we have the sun over on the other side, and we're going to talk about that, opposing the moon, also being squared by Mars and Pluto. But this is really bringing that up. Anywhere where it is that we take pleasure in other people's pain and other people's suffering, where we want revenge, where we want to be the hand of karma in a situation, where it is that we're sitting and waiting for somebody to get theirs. You know what I mean? That's the energy of Eris. We want to really pay attention to that, really notice that, and see if we can begin transforming that energy into a higher octave. And when we do that, what we're attempting to do is to appreciate people, competitors, people who have different viewpoints than us, people who hold different ideologies, and to love people for where they're at, and to really desire to lift people up instead of drag them down. That's the energy here. When we elevate the energy of Eris, we are lifting people up. When we sit in the energy, her lower vibration, that's when we're wanting to drag people down. So we're going to perhaps see this. We're going to see people trying to drag other people down, drag each other's names through the mud. A lot of competition that is not, we'll say, of a higher vibration, a lot of low vibrational competition, a lot of dirty tricks being played. That kind of an energy is something that we might see. And we might have our own wounds coming up. Wounds of being left out, wounds of not being appreciated, wounds of feeling as though other people were always having the good things happen to them and we were always getting the shit end of the stick, essentially. That's some of these energies. And there's a lot of insecurities with that Chiron energy there, working through Mars and Aries being our courage, being our confidence. A lot of that energy where we're feeling less than, perhaps we're remembering these experiences of feeling less than. We're feeling judged with this Eris energy as well. And so working through all of that, noticing where we have become judgmental, noticing where that is showing up in other people as well. There is a real beautiful gift here of being able to step into our empowerment and our integrity with that opposing energy of the sun at 24 degrees of Libra. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that ability to remain in our own integrity and to really stand in our own power and not to be ruled by our emotions, rather to take them into consideration and use them as one piece of a larger puzzle of coming to understand our true wants, our true desires. I think for a lot of people, what we truly think and feel about situations, about ourselves and about other people is really going to be highlighted during this full moon. Now, the sun over there is not alone either. The sun is actually in an exact conjunction with Juno, the asteroid of partnership and marriage, and still loosely with Black Moon Lilith, but much more. Black Moon Lilith is at 17 degrees of Libra. We've got the sun and Juno at 24. And then we got the south node still over there a little bit. And of course, the north node in Aries still kind of on the outside, but very much the outside. 6 degrees, I believe they're still at here. So definitely on the outskirts here. But remember, we're playing out these themes as we're going to have the nodes switching signs. I believe it's on 1/11, actually, January 11th, that the north node shifts into Pisces and the south node shifts into Virgo. So we're completing this energy, and we have one more eclipse in March along this Aries-Libra axis. So the nodes are relevant here. And it's that energy of releasing. Remember with that south node in Libra. And remember with the eclipse, the solar eclipse in Libra video that we did, we talked about the old relationship templates. that we were releasing and rewriting here with the South Node there, with Black Moon, Lilith, Mercury, all of these planets in this stellium in Libra during that new moon. So we're going to continue to be working through those themes. We're going to continue to be looking at this relational aspect. The Sun conjunct Juno really wants relationship, really wants connection, really wants partnership and harmony. Although Black Moon Lilith on the outskirts of that conjunction still is still kind of, she wants to harp on the justice. She wants to harp on the equality and the reciprocity aspect of all of this. But we're really looking for that. That moon in Aries really wants independence. It really wants freedom. And it's really not, especially with Eris and Chiron there, it's not looking to replay situations where it felt less than or had to compromise itself. So that is a really intense energy. Add in Mars, who always wants freedom, although in Cancer, he's much more home-oriented. And Pluto, which is our ultimate freedom through the standing in our ultimate power. And we've got a really interesting mix of energies here. So it's like we're going to feel very conflicted. There's going to be a lot of conflicting feelings and emotions. Like, I desire partnership, I desire connection, but I also want to be alone. It's kind of that energy of like come here, no, go away, come here, no, go away. If we are involved in any of those hot and cold type of dynamics with other people, we're going to see that energy intensifying probably. And if we play that role, it's going to be really interesting where some people may start noticing where they're pointing at the finger at other people for being hot and cold or playing these cat and mouse type games, but they're actually an active participant in it. And they might even see that when somebody else isn't doing that to them, they're the ones actually doing that, right? Remember, everybody's a mirror. So we're going to be noticing a lot about ourselves. Libra energy ruling that 7th house is the energy of the shadow when it comes to the things we don't recognize in ourselves that we project onto other people. And there's a lot of energy with projection here that we're going to want to be aware of with all of these conflicting energies just sort of like bouncing around here. So it should be really fascinating. A couple beautiful things that I do love about this full moon are the facts that we have Jupiter at 21 degrees of Gemini in his retrograde. And we're going to do, I think, probably a separate video on the Jupiter retrograde. This is going to be really, really powerful. Like we said, we touched on it in the weekly astrology report, how Jupiter's retrograde is helping us to integrate a lot of what we learned about ourselves and our relational templates through that new moon solar eclipse in Libra, being that it was loosely trining that eclipse. And now that energy, that connection between Jupiter and both the sun and the moon is more pronounced. Jupiter is in a sextile to the moon and a trine to the sun. So really tying everything together nicely here, really harmonizing that opposition between the sun and the moon here and bringing us into balance, bringing some hope, bringing some perspective, bringing some idealism perhaps, and really helping to assist us in understanding these dynamics better within ourselves, these conflicting aspects of ourselves, how these play out in relationships, and also ultimately understanding our own belief systems, our own morals, ethics, ideals, and values. And having us take an even closer look at how it is that those are reflected in the current state of our personal lives, as well as on a collective scale and the current state of our world. I'm not sure if I mentioned this during the weekly astrology, but I find it really interesting that as we have all of this intensity going on in the world, and as we're moving through this election cycle in the US, we have Jupiter and Saturn working through these opening squares from their great conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius back in 2020. So this is the first time they've come into a square. They had that exact square during the full moon in Aquarius. They'll have another one on Christmas Eve and another one in June. They'll have moved into different signs in that point. Saturn, I believe, will be in Aries. Oh, interesting. The second exact square, there's 3 sets because of the retrograde and direct motion of these planets. Saturn retrograde and then direct, and then Jupiter retrograde and then direct. So they come into contact 3 times in this exact squaring position. So we had that first one, and the second one, we're going to have Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Gemini. But then we're going to have Saturn in Aries. And I believe is Jupiter still going to be in Gemini? I'm not sure. Jupiter may have actually moved on to Cancer by then, I think. But I'll get you the details as we get closer to June of next year. Let's just say, like, they're in this process. Like, they're not in an exact square, but they're still in a loose square. And they're going to be moving, they're kind of moving back and forth from the intensities being when those squares become exact. As we're moving through all these transfers of power and all of these crazy dynamics, Saturn and Jupiter represent government. They represent the ideals and the philosophies that create the institutions to uphold these things. So it's really, really fascinating, everything that's going on as we're coming into those check-in points. Because remember, when they came together in Aquarius, this was initiating the age of Aquarius timeline. So they are really helping us to create the ruling, governing structures that will support that age of Aquarius timeline. So all as we're moving through election season in the United States, this is a big check-in point for that. And other world governments have been shifting. A lot has been changing on a world level as well. So just a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And Jupiter in this retrograde is really moving through this deep process of introspection when it comes to our own individual goals, morals, values, ideals, and ethics, so that we can better understand where we stand and better evaluate who and what aligns with what it is that we believe. And as I was talking about ethics and morals and values, I was just thinking about the Constitution. I was thinking about when the United States was created. Remember, we had our Pluto return in 2022. And this 29 degree of Capricorn point is really the finalization, the completion of that Pluto return energy for the United States. So that was when the United States was created, when we first stated our sovereignty as a sovereign nation and broke away from these ruling powers that we found to be corrupt. And now we have another evolution of that energy as Pluto's purifying that process and showing us, all right, this is what you created. This is what those institutions are doing. Do you want that? Do you consent to that, or do you not? And now we have Jupiter and Saturn doing their dance here, helping us to check in with that on a deeper level and come up with the solutions. And as we move into the United States Uranus return, which is honestly official in 2027, because the United States' Uranus is at 8 degrees of Uranus, or 8 degrees of Gemini rather. And Uranus won't hit 8 degrees of Gemini until 2027, but Uranus will enter the sign of Gemini next year. And so we're going to begin to be feeling those energies of that Uranus return, which is really about the radical change. It's about those huge unexpected shifts that leaping through these timelines. It is about that restructuring process. Pluto began that process, and Uranus is going to bring it on home with the assistance of Saturn and Jupiter as they continue to move through their process of their connections as we move through the next 20-year period. So anyway, getting back to this, we have Jupiter really harmonizing this, bringing a relief to some of the tension of this Grand Cross, I feel, bringing a little bit of hope and really getting us to think and ponder deeply and perhaps come to some real, some surprising realizations and epiphanies, especially in the sign of Gemini. The sign of facts, figures, information, communication, exchanging ideas. So really beautiful energy there. Another beautiful thing that we have going on during this full moon is we actually have Venus at 29 degrees of Scorpio. And so she is in a sextile with Pluto, who is still in a sextile, of course, with Neptune. And she is in a trine with Neptune. So we have a beautiful minor grand trine going on here. Of course, we still have, to some extent, that minor grand trine between Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune. But now we also have one during this full moon between Venus in Scorpio, Neptune in Pisces, and Pluto in Capricorn. And this is another beautiful harmonizing energy. It is an intense energy. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, Mars being the old school ruler, Pluto being the new school ruler. So there is some intensity there. This is a very dynamic, creative energy. It's a very deep energy. It's a very intimate energy. There's a high sexual charge to this energy as well. So there's a lot of, and we've got that energy with Black Moon Lilith still vaguely within some reach of the Sun and Juno there within Libra. And we got that Eris energy too. So there's a lot of this raw feminine sexuality energy as well. There's a lot of this, I feel it like releasing of taboos when it comes to our sexuality, a deeper reclaiming of that energy and our own sexual power. There's a beautiful, like we said, a creative energy, a lot of intuition coming through, a lot of downloads perhaps, a lot of psychic energy. This is, I think, where we're seeing another instance of this past life recall that we talked about with the 1010 portal energy, of really unifying the soul fragments, bringing those back home, that soul retrieval type of an energy. And really like a deep healing when it comes to our sexuality, when it comes to our creativity, and when it comes to our ability and our willingness to be intimate and to meet people on a soul level. And I think this is going to give us an opportunity. What Spirit's showing me right now is that people are going to be recognizing the people in their lives on a soul level. So this is when, when you meet somebody and you have that, you know them, even though you don't know how. There's that instant kinship. There's a recognition. You don't remember exactly who they are, but you know that you've known them before. And so for some people, it's like you're going to recognize who that person is to you. You may not remember, oh, this was George from my life during World War I, right? Or, this was Josiah from, 14 BC, but you're going to recognize the connection, and there's going to be an opportunity to deepen that connection, to deepen that bond. As we've moved through eclipse season, we've been releasing the old soul contracts. Saturn and Pisces has been assisting with this as well. We talked about this in several videos over the past few months. So there has been that releasing of soul contracts. And if there have been soul contracts that have been coming up for completion, but there was something, that lesson that needed to be learned. There was something that still needed to be understood. For some people, it was who this person is to you, and that's going to become clear. And for other people, it's like the connections that are remaining that are not meant to be, like the soul contracts that are ongoing or the new ones that are getting ready to initiate. I really feel this as a period of time where it's like you're going to begin to recognize what those contracts were, what those lessons were, and like I said, who these people are to you on a soul level. So that's really, really big and really, really powerful. And I love that for us. Let's see if there's anything else we're feeling about this. Remember, 29 degrees is that anaretic degree. It's that degree of completion. So Venus very much completing her journey through the sign of Scorpio, through her own underworld, when it comes to the ways that she lives, the ways that she loves, the ways that she creates, the ways that she connects, and her true deep desires and passions, and really owning that. So we're getting an opportunity to do that. And this also feels like a beautiful integration of soul gifts through lifetimes as well. So those are two really beautiful points about this full moon that really help to bring in some of that lighter, well, maybe not lighter necessarily, but more hopeful energy. Tell me what you feel about this full moon. What excites you about this? What maybe makes you a little bit nervous? Remember, we talked about at the beginning of this video, the fact that these grand crosses are activators. They're activating something dormant within us, a passion within us, a sovereignty within us, a desire within us. This also feels to me like issues of control, not just when it comes to other people trying to control us, but when it comes to self-control, self-modulation and regulation. This is a moon that's really going to teach us what is within my control and what is not. And it's going to really ask us to step it up where it is that something is within our control. And where it is that something is outside of our control, it's going to ask us to let it go. And if we refuse to let it go, that's where the real uncomfortability begins. So just go with the energies, go with where they're flowing, go with where they're taking you, and step up where it is that you're being asked to step up, and step down or step back where it is that you're being asked to step down or step back. I love you all so much. You are so beautiful. Thank you for being with me for this video. If you're still watching this, make sure you hit the like button if you did not yet, and go ahead and subscribe because you are clearly meant to be part of this tribe. We have a great time here. We do live streams. We do lots of videos like this. So many things. I love all of my beautiful, sacred, cosmic rebels. I appreciate you infinitely. I love you infinitely. If you want a personal reading, energy healing, chart reading, any of the things that I do, all of that information is in the description box below. And for those of you who are still watching, I think I'm going to pull one card for everyone. Yeah. Interesting. We're going to pull, actually, I'm going to pull, where's the deck that I want here? Right here. I'm going to pull from the Earth Warriors Oracle. A closing card here for everybody still watching this video. Clear. Let's get a closing card for this full moon in Aries, this whopper of a full moon, this super full moon in Aries. What does Spirit want to tell us? Well, I really cranked the heat up in here when I did this video, you guys, and I am sweating. I feel like that's like the fact that I'm noticing that right now, that's just talking about how much this full moon is going to be turning up the heat, right? We have card number 22 coming out in Ganyama. Oh, and you know what I just realized, what just came through too, is the fact that we have Mars right now at 22 degrees of Cancer. And a big turning point in these Capricorn energies, a big point of initiation and activation, happened when Pluto and Saturn met at 22 degrees of Capricorn in January of 2020. So that's just interesting, that with the number 22 and Mars being at 22 during the full moon. And in Gonyama says, honor of the ancient king. And we've got the lion energy there. So I'm going to read this for all of you. This deck is so beautiful. And the messages are really, really powerful. So that's what we're going to close with. We're going to read this card here. Honor of the ancient king. And I'll hold the card up again for you guys. The ancient king of Zulu brings you an empowering message. You are destined to know and experience what it is to be truly empowered. Your voice, your courage, your wisdom, and your dignity can create considerable spiritual light, uplifting and inspiring others, guiding them from a place of spiritual truth towards the fulfillment of their own divine potential. Didn't we talk about the destined and fated aspect of the Grand Cross, right? If you have been doubting yourself or feeling unworthy of the boldness of your visions, you must allow your spirit to roar, for you shall conquer all obstacles and succeed in your heart's desires. This oracle indicates awakening and the healing and strengthening of divine masculine energy within the soul to take the initiative and to lead with wisdom. And that's all Mars, right? The highest expression of Mars is that divine masculine energy. Healing of masculinity is relevant at both the physical and psychological levels. To love and make peace with the masculine allows it to become dynamic and expressive of integrity, purpose, justice, and protection. Acknowledge your own power. Do not play small. Conserve your energy, get plenty of rest, but when the time is right, let your soul roar and your true voice be heard without hesitation or fear. You are a protector and leader of others. Allow your spiritual connection to awaken your courage and boldness. Refuse to be put down. Trust in the dignity and divinity within. And I feel like there's going to be a really powerful, like we said, Mars is retrograde, is really going to play into this as well and be another aspect that ties all these energies in together. And that's going to be from the sign of Leo back into Cancer. Leo being the sign of the lion, right? In Ganyama in Zulu refers to lion, yet it is not a simple translation. It also refers to a natural position of power. Implied in this is a position of kingly leadership, which entails the wisdom of justice and mercy. This is the spirit of the divine masculine actively expressed in order to right the wrongs of the world. This divine masculine potency within men and women defends the sacred feminine by putting in the energy, action, and commitment required to bring her values to life. So this is about harmonizing our own masculine and feminine energies with Eris and Black Moon Lilith involved in this conversation, and even Venus and Scorpio, right? There is a powerful balancing, especially Libra being an energy of balance, between those energies, clearing out those toxic feminine and toxic masculine themes so that the feminine and masculine can both step into their divine nature and be those beautiful balancing and complementing energies to each other, just as this said right here. When it says the divine masculine potency within men and women, right? Because we both have both of these essences, defends the sacred feminine by putting in the energy, action, and commitment required to bring her values to life. Divine masculine consciousness is essential for us to conquer procrastination, hesitation, fear, doubt, and inertia. So if any of you guys have been struggling with that, I feel like this full moon is actually it's going to create the tension that finally helps to push us out of that energy of stagnancy. If any of us have been feeling that, I know I've been struggling with that a lot. It is the power of the sword of discernment, integrity, strength, and honesty. It is the ability to protect and defend what is worthy. It is not about dominating the world, but about moving powerfully amongst it, from a position of inner spiritual connection to the wisdom of the sacred feminine that is always revealing the way. The oracle of Ignoyama brings you lion medicine. Lion is the archetypical energy of raw power, strength, and fearlessness. Lions carry powerful energy for those that need to be seen and heard in positions of leadership. Be fearless, and as you trust in the spiritual power, which is certainly more than enough for any divine purpose that needs to be accomplished, express your true voice and affirm your intentions. The voice of the spirit is louder than any other voice within you or around you. It is the most powerful, the most far-reaching in impact, like the roar of the lion. This spiritual voice speaking truth will be heard and take effect, casting off any darkness seeking to impede your purpose and the purposes of those that you love and protect. There is a time and place when the feminine must come to the fore, and likewise when the masculine is required. This is not necessarily about men and women, but more about the masculine traits within both men and women. This is a time when you are asked to utilize masculine traits for best success. The feminine will then be able to flourish. These masculine traits include discernment and decisive action, creating order and clearing away what is no longer effective, and allowing for the new to emerge from the space created. It may seem that you are being held to a higher standard than others. This is because you have greater potential to evoke an effect. Higher standards of inner accountability form a spiritual safeguard, so that power, which is so easily corruptible, is expressed in a way that increases light by serving Great Spirit, rather than our own even well-meaning agendas. And this is exactly what we were talking about, what Pluto teaches us, right? The importance of accountability when wielding our power. Ignoyama also brings the message of wise cultivation of energy. Lions can rest for 20 hours a day. When they need to act, they do. They also take their share of the food available without apology. If you have been associating leadership with overwork and have sacrificed your needs to fulfill the needs of others, do away with that. In your well-being, strength, and dignity, so much more shall be accomplished. Those that you are here to love, guide, and protect will feel faith in their path all the more. So when their guide expresses and embodies divine love and wisdom with kindness toward all, including compassion and respect for self, it all begins with that. And I love how on the bottom of the deck, we're not going to read it, but Shaksa, the star of Venus, came out. I was thinking about the Venus star points. Those are when Venus comes into conjunction with the sun. She does this in a geometric pattern over different periods of years, creating this beautiful star in the sky. So working with the Venus star point, something about that. We're going to have to look more into that and delve more into the star points. I think she has one in Scorpio now. I think she started, activated a Venus star point in Scorpio soon. You guys, if you know anything about that, let me know. I love this. This is what popped out when I was shuffling the deck. Elhaz, divine might foretold. So us really stepping into our divine power and leadership, speaking our truth, owning our spiritual energy. And I think one of the most important messages that I personally got from that reading was the importance and the understanding that those of us who have, I don't want to say a higher mission, but who have a powerful mission that involves this leadership, that involves this energy, that involves us using our spiritual power in a way that really directly impacts the collective, we're held to a higher standard because we have to learn how to use that power. And when we get that, we come into that position of leadership and influence, that we're able to do it and go about it the right way for the highest good of all. So if you've been feeling especially challenged, if you've been feeling like it's been taking longer to reach your goals, longer to do the things that you set out to do, if you've been about to give up, just know that this has been Spirit molding you in order to get you to the place of discernment, to the place of understanding, to the place of integrity that was necessary in order for you to do what you had to do and to do it well. And that there is this testing almost, if you will, to make sure that we're ready to uphold the standards necessary for the positions within this continuing evolution of ascension that we came here to take. Those positions that our soul agreed, that was contracted to fulfill within this lifetime. There's a prep process for that, and it takes what it takes. It takes as long as it takes for different people. So that's what many of us have been going through and are going through. And I feel like there's going to be a real step up within the next few years, especially as Neptune moves into the sign of Aries, of people really, there's been a lot of people, we'll put it this way. There's been a lot of people in positions of power within the spiritual community who are negatively polarized or who have allowed that infringement and who have self-serving agendas. And there's a new wave of people coming into more positions of, I guess you could say power, notoriety, those of us who are up and coming within that energy. And it's the people who truly have integrity and truly have the service to others as their greatest motivator. As we continue shifting in frequency, that is the only energy that there is really space for anymore. We're not aligned with the service to self motif anymore. All right, that energy is the energy of the past. That's the energy of the false matrix. That's the energy we're moving out of. So we're going to begin to see spiritual leaders and people who have been spreading false information, whether purposely or unpurposely, but for self-serving purposes. We're going to see that exposed. We're going to see the takedown, I think, the downfall, if you will, of those. And remember, Eris, we don't want to like wish that upon people in a negative way, but we do want to wish for that to be exposed, for people's true intents and motivations to be exposed to others, and more importantly to themselves, right? And those of us who are going through these tests and initiations right now, seeing if we will stand in our light, stand in our truth, stand in our integrity. That is the process of vetting, if you will, by Spirit, for those of us who are meant to really take up those positions of being those guides as we move into this next wave of the ascension process. So I love you all. That's who I'm here for. I'm here for you, the way showers, the people who are here to assist the collective moving through this process. I am here to assist you, as well as, of course, the greater collective. But I feel a special call towards those who are coming into their own, so to speak, as the way showers moving forward. All right, I love you so much. I honor you. Thank you for everything that you've done, that you continue to do. Thank you for holding the light. Thank you for willing to look at your own shadow, to look at your own darkness. Thank you for being open-minded. Thank you for exploring, for not holding on to anything, for allowing these perspectives, for allowing all of the information, all of the integration, all of the truth to take root within you, for allowing your own truth to take root and blossom within you. You're beautiful. I honor you, and I'll talk to you soon.